I am finally getting around to uploading this video here. I had a incident with my son and flooding my house, so that happened in June. So I haven't been able to work on this thing. Finally got it back together. I was able to record it and do some editing and get this video uploaded for you guys. Again, hopefully this helps someone out. But this is me putting the transmission back together of this 2007 Kawasaki Mule 3010 trans. Here I'm replacing I think it's called a governor gear or the drive gear there on the main shaft. It was a little bit bent, uh, so I got a new one, uh, and a new washer and a new snap ring, and that's what I'm doing right now is putting the new stuff on. There's a little pin right here that rolls down, a little key that goes down into the shaft, and that's what that gear slides on, so make sure you don't forget to put that on. Through this whole process, you'll see me applying some gear oil to all the parts. There are instructions in the manual on doing this, but just make sure that you provide some sort of lubrication during assembly. Here, just make sure you line that notch cut in the inside of the gear, and with that little pin that I was talking about earlier that goes into the shaft, you'll line that up and get it to slide in. Then you'll put the spacer on, and then the snap ring will go on over that. I had to go get a rubber mallet to get that to fully seat down so that I could get the snap ring into the groove. I took it over to the workbench. It's a little bit more solid to hit it with that rubber mallet. The plastic table that I had assembling this on wasn't really good for getting that seated, so you might need a good sturdy surface to get that gear seated down on the shaft. Here I'm putting the gear shift selector in. Apply some lubricant there, and then you'll insert it through the hole there in the case, and then you'll be able to put your main shaft in there. What I didn't capture on video is there's a little roller bearing that goes on that shift fork right there that you can see. Make sure you put that on. Do not forget. I'm taking the snap ring off to get the gears off so that I can slide that part through the transmission. Then you'll be able to put your spacer and your snap ring back on. And I do apologize. I thought I had this a little bit wider of a viewing angle, so some of my shots are a little off camera. I do apologize about that. I'm applying some lubricant here, and then that part will slide into the transmission case. Then I will assemble the parts that I just took off and put the snap ring back on. I got it hung on the shift selector there, so if you pull that out a little bit, you'll be able to slide that past there, and then you can push it back over. Now, I flipped it back around. I had put the parts back on there but then realized that I needed to turn around to show you guys, so I flipped it back around, took the parts off, and just kind of put them back on so that the camera can see it. So here is where you would slide the shaft on. Then you put your spacer on. Then you're going to put your gear on. Make sure it's facing the correct direction. And then there is a tiny little shim or spacer. And then after that goes your snap ring. Make sure you get that snap ring fully seated. It should snap in there pretty loud, and you should be able to see to make sure it's even all the way around. Again, make sure you're lubricating everything. Uh, it's definitely going to help it when you first, start the transmission moving. When you get everything bolted up and start the mule, and its first couple rotations, you don't want it to be completely dry. You have to have this just right to get the slide on because it's such a fine tooth. So just take your time; it'll go in. Now you can go ahead and put the shaft in. Uh, I lubed the shaft up just so it would slide in easier, and of course, again, being lubricated. But you'll slide that on all the way through until it bottoms out. I realized here it would be easier to take the shaft back out, put the chains on, and then reinsert the shaft. There's a little shim back there. Do not forget to put that shim right behind that gear that I'm putting in right now that holds the chain. Uh, you need to put that on and kind of hold it in place when you slide the shaft on. There's already a shim on the shaft on this side of the shaft next to the governor gear. So don't forget that one as well. So there should be two shims on either side of that chain driven gear. Don't forget that little pin that I'm putting in right now into the gear selector. You cannot forget that. If you do, it's going to cause big problems and you're going to have to take this thing back apart. Now I'm putting the ball, spring, and retainer into the side of the case that holds tension on the selector. I gave it a little bit of lubrication as well, just so it wasn't stiff on once it starts shifting. I'm just making sure everything's working here. Just kind of checking behind myself. I'm applying lubrication to the chain. Um, Again, you can't overdo it. It's not going to matter. Uh, any added lubrication once it first starts turning will definitely help prevent any kind of damage. Here I flip the transmission around. I'm just checking everything, putting the gear on here. There's a spacer or a shim that goes on right there. So make sure you get that on. Make sure you get the gear in the correct orientation. And then there is a washer that goes on the very end of the input shaft. So I'm going to wrap part one of the transmission assembly up because I am limited to 15 minutes. So make sure you like and subscribe and watch the follow-up video for the finishing up of the rebuild.